Good afternoon. Today I'll be talking about my top three principles from the 10 Principles of Effective Online Teaching, Best Practices, aka the 10 Commandments. The first principle I chose to focus upon was Principle 1, showing up in teaching. I know a lot of us tend to think that with the online classroom or the blended classroom, we have created these environments, these LMS learning management systems where we've put together all these tools and resources for our students to use. We've put in videos, we've put in discussion boards, and we kind of let it be student led. Although this is also a good idea to have students lead the learning in their own learning, it's still important that we are there. We're supporting the students through questions, through confusion, through frustration as well. We're just kind of always attentive. We're asking questions. We're supporting students. We're responding to their emails, as well as just kind of monitoring the work that's being done on the online or blended learning environment. Principle 3 talks about establishing patterns of course activities. I believe it's important to kind of keep a same schedule when you're working online or when you're working with students in the classroom. It's always good to have an agenda. It's always good to kind of let students know what's going on, what's coming up, what they're supposed to get done. That way, they just kind of have a plan of action as to how they are going to approach the class. They have a plan of action as to what they need to do. That way, they can kind of balance their own schedules between different classes. As we know, students aren't just only taking one class. Some of them have 5 or 6 classes as well as after school activities. So when you're doing the blended learning, when you're asking students to get online and do certain activities or certain work, it's always good to have a schedule of the activities or a schedule of the due dates so that students know what's coming up, students know what they need to get done. They can kind of put things in order as to how they need to get done from most important to maybe the least important. And that's principle 3 for me. Last but not least, I went with planning for the unplanned. I believe this one is very strongly associated with the instructor more than the learner. In this principle, the article talked about the instructor may serve as the primary point of contact with the online learning activities. When that service is interrupted, confusion and anxiety may arise. That is true. If students are working on something and they aren't able to get in touch with you, I know that's going to cause for a lot of confusion. In my experience, I know that's happened to me before. Maybe I'm confused about something. Most of the time, I'm running late on an assignment. I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. I'm not able to get in touch with the professor. That can cause for me to kind of become a little bit worried or agitated or confused. So I think as the instructor, planning for the unplanned really means setting out a schedule as to when you're available, letting students know the times that they can reach you, as well as just kind of setting up backup plans in case something was to happen or cause for you not to be available. In my project, it's asking me here to think about how I will mix blended classroom instruction with the online portion of the project. I think with my instruction, blending it with the classroom, I think I'll just have to maybe have a course announcements page, having some sort of communication with students as to how I can reach out to all my students at one time, whether it be an email blast with all students, whether it be posting announcements on the LMS page. That way, the students are always seeing what's going on. They're always being told what changes are taking place in the classroom. That way that they're not confused. That way they can kind of keep tabs on what needs to happen. Frequent emails will definitely be going out. Also talking about certain things in the classroom before sending students assignments. That way they know what's coming up, what's happening, and always telling students to check their emails because that would be the primary source of contact for students for me. The role of the evolving role of the teacher is definitely something to take into consideration in this blended environment, as we are kind of taking back more so on the direct instruction and kind of leaving students to kind of go out there and find their own information and kind of dictate their own learning, but still providing the support needed. As of course, I talked about that in principle number 1, allowing students to kind of be their own learner, but at the same time, still providing the support and being there as a teaching role is very important and very vital. So even though there is a change taking place, even though there is an evolution of learning taking place, it still has some concepts that needs to remain the same in the role of being a teacher and a student. There's definitely some challenges I can foresee happening with moving my students from this face-to-face interaction to more of an online and blended learning environment. students tend to see online instruction as maybe a time to kind of just play around. They become easily distracted. And, that's kind of the biggest takeaway I can think of. I can also see students becoming maybe uh, frustrated with the deadlines, maybe frustrated with what they're supposed to do at times. So the 10 principles that we were faced with, that we were given as instructors, definitely kind of gives you a basis on how to kind of just be better prepared when planning a project using the internet. I know that they mentioned also having something like a fact sheet, something where you can always have the frequently asked questions. Students are always prepared. They can always refer to something before becoming stressed out because they can't reach you, because they have the flexibility of working at any time that they want. So just having multiple types of reinforcements in place will definitely support the frustration and the anxiety and confusion that students are going to face in the online or blended learning environment. Thank you.